The newest member of the San Francisco Elections Commission isn't even allowed to vote legally in this country. And that is because Kelly Wong is not an American citizen. A voter-approved measure passed in 2020, and it removed the citizenship requirement for those seeking a spot on the 7-member civilian body. Wong came to the U.S. from Hong Kong in 2019 to pursue graduate studies and to tell Americans how to be nicer to immigrants. Need I remind you, she is coming from Hong Kong, a place where Americans, especially white Americans, are not given any kind or form of political power over the locals. Yet we have to be nicer and not them. And yes, I know Hong Kong and places like it are typically happy to see white vacationers and others coming and spending money, and maybe they'll like to see a few settle locally and assimilate. But happily pocketing the cash of foreigners is much different than giving those same foreigners the power to determine local elections and customs such as language. It's impossible for Americans to be nicer at this point if that term only means handing over the keys of the kingdom to those not interested in its long-term survival. When you mass import non-citizens and those who have no desire to ever assimilate in a meaningful way, then that means they're here for the short-term benefits. They see the U.S. as a giant economic zone with no history, culture, or tradition of its own worth preserving. If America turns into a third world hellhole, as it is in many places, after all its resources are extracted, they don't care as long as they got theirs in the process. If that is an uncomfortable truth to swallow, then how about this one? Heading into the weekend, granny killer Rachel Levine, the transgender man who is the Assistant Secretary for Health at the HHS, released this video. Watch.
Climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of Black communities. Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to live in areas and housing that increase their susceptibility to climate-related health issues. And 65% of Black Americans report feeling anxious about climate change's impact.
So how does this relate to Kelly Wong, you may be wondering? Well, simple. The border crisis and the related immigration crisis has been poison for Democrats this year because now even inner-city minority children, the children of the strongest bloc of Democrat voters, are being kicked out of school or having their sports shut down to make room for migrants. The optics have gotten so bad that Democrats are finally saying that there is a crisis at the border, but now they're claiming it's the fault of Republicans in order to shift blame. They obviously don't want the border crisis to be solved in any meaningful way, so what can they do to keep the demographics replacement going without having their coalition fray even more, as migrants and inner-city residents fight over the same promised government handouts from the left? Well, they have two options. One was the border sellout deal, which would have given them more money and resources to keep the scope of the migrant crisis more or less hidden from the public eye. But that tanked. And so now it's back to old reliable. Blame the climate. Accuse climate change of specifically harming Black and brown people, which is what Levine was doing in that clip. And soon enough, they'll have the public primed for what Al Gore was talking about just last December around Christmas time, that we need to get ready for the possibility of having 1 billion so-called climate migrants trying to resettle over the next few decades. And by that point, what will the word citizen even mean anymore? Joining us now to discuss is Oren McIntyre, a Blaze Media columnist and the host of the Oren McIntyre Show podcast. Oren, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So how dangerous is it for us to be completely erasing the idea of what it even means to be an American citizen?
Well, like you said, it puts us in a terrible place because wealth extraction really is the key here. You notice that every part of this revolutionary coalition is built around the idea that, there is no real America. There are no real Americans. Anyone could be American, or maybe it doesn't even matter if you are an American. But at the same time, while this fanciful idea of Americans isn't real, these people also owe everyone lots of money. They owe reparations to different people. You have to make sure that they're not victimizing people through their effect on the climate. You have to make sure that they're being very kind to any and everyone who enters the country, and make sure that they are represented as soon as they cross the border. Everybody who isn't actually American is also apparently very, very, very liable for the well-being of everyone inside the United States. And it's their job to fork over their money at every opportunity to go ahead and pay off Democratic clients.